have you ever spent a day, I mean an entire day with some kids who are a bit rambunctious? I mean, kids whose parents even call them pains or brats. Hey, sweetie, don't grind up the elevator backwards. How you guys doing? Good, good. And hey, you guys, don't pull Bugs Bunny's tail. Come on. I tell you, I don't have kids, but I borrow them every once in a while. Like these kids who are on our show today, kids whose parents say that every once in a while they're a bit too much to deal with. Are you kids really that bad? And proud of it. If you ever have kids or thinking about kids or have a discipline problem, even borrow kids, you don't want to miss today's Rolonda. Come on, kids. Oh, don't squeeze his face like that. No, don't do that. It's coming to your house like going to a three-ring circus because your kids are clowning around all the time. They're swinging from the rafters. They're making a lot of noise. They're jumping through hoops. Well, then you've got homes like Tamara Locks and Pat Beach. They are two mothers who say that their kids are driving them insane sometimes. Tamara says that her two daughters, Jessica and Patricia, embarrass her in front of the friends. One of them shaved her sister's head, and poor mom still can't figure out which one of these cute little girls started to burn down the house. Well, we followed Tamara and her darling daughters on a recent shopping spree.
Do you think that's fair? I only got $2 and she got $100. I'm mad. I'm very mad. I don't know her.
Girls, no, enough.
Well, you better buy her or I'll fire you.
You know better than that. How about the pepper chewing gum?
No.
Or a joy buzzer?
No.
What about disappearing ink?
No.
You squirted on people and scare them?
No. I don't know her anymore. Kids can't want me, okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, meet Tamara. Tamara. Now, we got a little taste of the girls. Are they really like this all the time?
They can be a handful.
A handful. Yeah. What about the shaving heads? I mean, what's going on?
Well, this one did a number on herself just recently. I have it hidden with the bow.
You have it hidden?
She thought she'd beat me to the hairdressers.
I had to cut my hair because it was too hot.
It was too hot.
And I snuck up and I cut my hair and that was it.
And that was it.
I almost shaved my head off.
The cat's also gotten it a few times.
The cats got their hair cut too?
Yeah, we had to do a hairstyle. Their hair was like...
Was that before or after you picked up the scissors?
Before.
Before. So you cut the hair on the cat too?
Yeah.
What made you decide to do that?
Well, like when I was a year and a half old, we were in Maryland and our one cat, Peanut Butter, she drug in a dead rabbit that she killed and I stuffed it up underneath my mom's armpit.
You brought the rat.
She thought I could fix it. She didn't realize it was dead.
Well, Mommy can fix anything, right?
She thought I had rescued a rabbit once before the cat had brought in, and I used to catch it and put it out underneath the bushes so it could go back to its nest. And the cat, my husband left the window open like that much, and the cat managed to drag the whole carcass in. And she sees the cat with the rabbit, and she goes, "Oh, poor bunny," and sticks it in bed with me, and just assumes that. And I wake up, and here's this carcass laying there.
Let me ask you girls, do you do these things just because you know it's going to get Mom's goat?
No, not at all.
So why do you do these wacko things?
Because we feel like it. Yep, that's our duty.
That's what. And what is your duty?
To drive Mom up the wall. Yep.
To drive Mom up the wall. Well, at least they admitted it here, folks, okay?
One time,
Yes,
my sister, when I was in the bathtub, she got hot water and then she sprayed it on me, and then I was like,
Ugh. Okay. What do you do when people say, "Oh, those girls are brats"?
You don't want to know. You don't want to know at all.
Yes, I do. It's a talk show. You can tell me.
All right, see. You promise not to tell anybody?
Yeah, I promise I won't tell anybody.
I'm sure, Patty, half America's watching us.
Yeah, next year's teacher's going to see this.
Well, my first teacher was really, really wild.
She was a nice teacher.
No, she went, "You get back here, you woman!"
Well, you must have been doing something to deserve it.
No.
Okay, of course, they never do anything. Let me introduce you to another mother. Pat Beach has 4 little rascals. 12-year-old Roger. There's 8-year-old Joanna. And 4-year-old Joey. Where are you, Joey? And 2-year-old Zachary. Zachary, you've calmed down a lot there. Well, Pat Beach says that life around her house is anything but a day at the beach. She lives wondering what in the world her kids are going to do next. Here are a couple of moments from a day in the life of the Beaches.
Of her hair. I stood there and watched you.
Well, he started it. In a way, we both started it. He started it. Cool. For my mommy. For my mommy. No, my mommy.
Oh, no! Beach! Life's a beach!
That's what they say.
Yeah, and tell me about that. Is that a typical day in the life of your home, your family at home?
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of the most amazing things that you've witnessed?
Oh my goodness. Outside of them, they're just always fighting. When Joey was a baby, one day he wandered out of our house, and
Yes, you, Joey.
at 4 o'clock in the morning, he woke up and got out of our house.
That window down.
Wait. What was this, Joey?
That window down.
You did what?
I put that window again right down.
You broke the window, and that's how you got out of the house? I heard you had a nickname that the people in the town had called you a special name because you got out of the house so much.
I knew that.
What was your name?
Joey.
Joey. What did they call your brother?
They called him Houdini.
Houdini, because he could get out of anything, right?
Right.
How do you've got 4 kids. How do you, does it just get, what position does it put you in? I went shopping with your kids today, okay?
Well, you see what they're like. You never know what they're going to do next. And that's basically how they are. You never know which one's going to wander off and get into what kind of charade, who's going to be at the Lost and Found or be announced over the loudspeaker in the store. They're just... they're real little darlings.
But you know something, the kids aren't bad kids. They're just very rambunctious. That I have to say, they're delightful children. They're just a lot of them with a lot of energy. How do you guys deal with this day to day?
Laugh.
So, you want to say something, Roger?
We just kind of look at it and laugh.
You look at it and laugh, but you see you're driving your mother wacko. You do. Is that part of what you like to do? Come here. You talk to your sister, too. Come on over here.
But when I'm bored.
When you're bored, what do you do?
And drive Mom up the wall.
Do you guys know just what buttons to push?
Yes.
Like what?
Exactly.
Like,
Running around.
when she tells us to make her bed and clean her room, you just ignore her.
Sit down.
But you can't just ignore your mom.
Yes, you can.
I don't do
yes,
that.
you can.
She does that.
So what do you do?
Most of the times when my mom tells me to clean up my room, I do it.
You do it. But sometimes you do what? Hi, Joey. Come on over here. Beep, beep. So what do you do when you see Mom about to just lose it? Do you understand sometimes what she goes through? You do? But I bet you do it on purpose still?
Sometimes.
We got some tips for little guys like you. Okay? When we come back, woo toot toot, more outrageous stories from the family front, and a discipline expert who's going to tell us how to tame little wild things like this. And do you know that the problem could be what you're feeding your kids? We'll talk about all of this when we come back. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking to mothers mothers and their children today who are kids who are said to be almost impossible sometimes to live with. Sound like your house? It just might. Joining us now for a few suggestions for these families is the author of a bestseller called The Difficult Child, and this new book called The Emotional Problems of Normal Children. He's a renowned expert in the field of child psychology, and he is the physician in charge of the Difficult Child Center here in New York City. Please welcome Dr. Stanley Turkey, everybody. Dr. Turkey, before we get to you, please, Tamara, I understand that something recently happened at a birthday party with your kids. Please tell us the story.
This wasn't exactly recent. We had a little problem with the next door neighbor. You know, the kid was always coming over, and basically she almost lived at my house half the time. So she had had a birthday party. She had always been invited to our daughter's parties for, years. And then one day, I guess her and Jesse had a tiff, and she didn't invite Jesse. And here I didn't pay any mind. I figured just go watch TV. I was doing housework, and next thing I know, well, here comes the mother. And I look, and where all the little girls had their little pretty frilly party dresses on, and their hair was perfect. Here I saw about a dozen little half-drowned children. And she goes, well, your daughter turned the hose on the birthday party. Oh! And I thought, no, my daughter was in there watching TV. And after I said that, I looked back, and here's my daughter sitting here going, and I thought, now how do I retract what I just said?
Which one of you girls did that? You did?
Yep.
Poured the hose on the whole party. Well, how did you discipline her after that? How do you discipline?
I was in total shock. All I could do was stand there and go,
oh, gosh. Now, Pat, your husband is here. Joe, come on, stand up, Joe. You're halfway responsible for this. What do you think about all the kids and doing their little mischievous things, and you hear them? They know what buttons to push.
Oh, they do know that. I work most of the time, so I come home. I hear it mostly from her. And they're pretty much calmed down by the time I get home. So they must hear that I'm going to come home.
But is it true that every family needs a little help every now and then, learning a better way to discipline?
Well, 4 you do.
4. Are you guys very helpful to each other? Pat? No.
They fight each other all the time.
You two fight too?
Sometimes when it concerns them.
Yeah. Okay, so how does the discipline act work between both of you?
Well, I discipline during the day, and when he comes home, I run away, and there he is.
And there he is. Like your kids during the day, his kids during the night, right? Okay. Let's bring in our resident expert here. Thank you so much. Dr. Turkey, would you help us see some things here? Because what we're learning is that these kids are not bad kids, but they've got some behavioral badness to them. Go on and tell us what you're seeing as you watch this. What are some things that these mothers should keep in mind as they're trying to discipline their kids?
Well, I saw both what I saw here, and also I talked with both the mothers, and I saw the videotapes in more complete form. So I'd like to present, first of all, a fuller picture of each child.
Okay.
For example, Patricia, as you could see, I mean, she is an actress in the making. She's enthusiastic. Oh, yes. She's forceful, she's enthusiastic, she was forward-going, she's got a lovely, engaging personality. You can see that Jessica can clearly stand up for her own rights, and Jessica and her mom both had a bit of trouble with a neighbor there. It wasn't just Jessica. Roger is a very warm-hearted, generous child who has a short fuse. And Joanna, nobody will ever walk over Joanna. Joanna will always take care of herself. Joey is a very imaginative child who sometimes is also fearful. And little Zach is an active, very active child that needs a lot of structure. So before we talk about how to discipline them, let's also look at their strengths. They've got many strengths, these children.
I love the way you did that. That helps us. Doing that great. That really helped, because I think isn't that what you guys saw? You can clap for the doctor if you'd like to. Yeah. I appreciate that because it helps us put into perspective as we learn, because each child is different. I think that's something that parents...
That's the key.
Yeah.
And what that then leads you to is that in approaching your children, whether it's with behavioral problems or without, there are 2 key components. The one is to really accept and honor and respect who your children are as people. But on the other hand, to also provide for them the firm structure and the planning that goes with good discipline. Not punishment, Good discipline means much more that it has to do with planning and structure and routines and procedures. And the more you have of that, the more the child internalizes a system of controlling themselves and the less punishment you need. So the key issue is that to respect and accept your child goes very well together with providing a good discipline system.
Now, there are a lot of parents out there saying, now, you better respect my word when I say get down. That's what you need to respect. How do you deal with that? I mean, the kids were wonderful today, don't leave me wrong, but when we were shopping, I'll never forget, I asked Patricia, I said, you ready to go shop? She says, let's party! And I said, oh, no! And there were kids swinging from my arms, and we were all, and I said, how do you, and I kept saying, down, no, come over here. I mean, how do you deal with that? How do you say one word in a crowded place like a shopping mall and expect to have discipline?
You can't. And that's the point.
Okay.
And the point about that is that it is far less important what you do in reaction in a situation like that, except never stay in a situation which is embarrassing to you and your child. Get out. What is much more important is how you plan to prevent it. For example, in that shopping mall, little Patricia, who is a very active child, I could see in the video that I saw separate from this how she got overstimulated, and she sort of like went from first gear to second gear to third gear to overdrive. When she's in overdrive, she loses it and she becomes very, very tough. So the key is to prevent that rather than wait for it and react to it.
Well, I know, Dr. Turecki, that both mothers, Tamara and Pat, had said that you felt embarrassed by your kids at some times. Give me examples where you feel like, oh God, if I could just dig a hole and climb in it, I'd be happy now.
This one, you know, the other day we were on our way to church. She'll sit there and make sound effects in the car while the driver's trying to drive. I mean, she'll give him a little car sound, Patty. Screech. Louder than that. I mean, it's enough to make you want to go like this and grab the steering wheel. And she just, like the doctor said, works her way up to a point where you actually have to say, do you have to go out to the car and physically remove her out to the car?
But Tamara, can you see then how important it becomes to sort of like watch for those signs and to get the child out of the situation before she gets to overdrive?
Yeah.
And when you take her to the supermarket, maybe take her for 15 minutes at a time, then give her a break to calm down and bring her back, rather than expect her to stay for a whole hour, which she just will not be able to handle. It's not that she doesn't want to, it's just too much for her.
Okay, I know you have a question. We're going to get to your question. Also, when we come back, we're going to hear from a 4-year-old who calls himself the king of his parents' castle, and sometimes they agree he just might be. We'll be back.
I was raised differently, so that's why I want to know why, you know.
Here are two women who do not have children. We're trying to learn an awful lot today. We're talking today about what to do if you have a difficult child. I don't know about you, but I borrow a lot of them, and you have to know these things too. You had a question. Go on.
I just wanted to ask you, with all their active energy and everything, do they have chores around the house or responsibilities that they could put their energy into that instead of giving you heartache all the time? I don't know.
Pat, you kind of went, huh. What was that about?
Well, my two oldest ones have chores, but like my daughter said, when they're told to do their chores, she especially totally ignores us. I mean, it takes her...
Something. Have you ever defined those chores with her in a very serious discussion away from the moment?
Away from the moment?
Away from the moment.
What I've done is with both of them, I've walked them through, because they have like very basic, other than like cleaning their room. She has to clear the table after dinner, and Roger has to wash. Fair chores at their age, I thought. But I've walked them through, like, this is what you do with the food, this is what you do with the plates, this is how you scrape, this is how you wipe. You know, basic stuff.
Yes.
And she would just rather run off from the house.
But she says, the kids admit it, we ignore mom. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I wish I would have tried to ignore my mother. You know, I don't think that would go over too well. Yeah. But, I mean, how do you...
Well, I think that when a child says we ignore our mom, or when you get that sense that you are being ignored, you can say pretty clearly that somehow the adult authority system is not working the way it should be.
So what could she do?
Well, I think that the key, both for you and for anybody else that's listening, is to define what you expect, not at the time. That's the biggest mistake that parents make, that they react to the situation instead of sitting down, very seriously defining between her and her husband what are the specific chores that we expect of our children, bringing the children into a formal atmosphere, sitting them down, going over it, asking the child, do you understand? Please repeat it. And then at the end of that, darling, do your best with this. Okay. When you go through a clear definition, make sure the child understands and ask them to do their best, it's a completely different atmosphere from this sort of like, you know, why don't you do it? And the child is defiant and you're reacting. And before you know what's happening, it's like two children.
What I hear you saying is it almost sounds like a performance. Do your best for me. You want to perform this task, do your best. I mean, I don't know if that is part of the psychology there.
It's a serious statement. I mean, you're asking the child to be helpful. Not necessarily for me, but you're asking the child to be helpful.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Sure. We're going to continue this and get into some more things. And I want you to meet a little boy named Zachary when we come back. He calls himself, yes, you, Zachary, your head came up. He calls himself the king of his castle, all 4 years of him. Now, also when we come back, how to change a kid's behavior. Well, it could be by just changing a kid's diet. We'll talk about how food affects our children's behavior after this. Hey everybody, I want you to meet Zachary Bolin and his mom Dee. Zachary is not very happy right now. Zachary, you're a little upset. What are you feeling inside? Okay, he doesn't want to talk. Just a minute ago, we wanted to have Zachary was playing with the other kids, and then his mom spent like 15 minutes almost trying to get him to come and sit down, and he just never would. I mean.
No, Zachary makes up in his own mind on what he's going to do.
Yeah, when I met Zachary today in that store, he had this hat on that said, "The King lives." And I said, well, who's the king? He says, I'm the king. So
that's what he thinks. He's the king.
The king in your house. What does that mean when you say that?
What Zachary wants to do, Zachary usually ends up doing. And there's not a whole lot that can persuade him.
I remember watching you. You were trying to get him to move 10 feet. And he would not do it. And you were like, please, Zachary, please. How do you do that when it comes to brush your teeth and, you know, and wake up and do your, I mean, how do you discipline?
We've tried everything. I mean, it's hard. Basically, right now, Zachary does what he wants to do. It's very hard for me because I have a 6-year-old who listens so well. He's just, anything I ask him to do, he does. And then we have Zachary, on the other hand. Mm-hmm. And we've tried every type of discipline, whether it's compromising, coaxing, bribing, spanking, everything.
So, Dr. Turecki, this doesn't sound right. I mean,
nor do any of those sound like trials of discipline. In a sense, they sound like the efforts of a parent who's feeling a little desperate. And I don't blame you. You have a very strong-willed child. You might say to yourself that while your 6-year-old will get along very well in one way, this child will never have anybody walk over him. He's got a very strong personality. And therefore, to begin with, you should very deliberately pick with your husband the very specific situations that you will go to the mat over. Absolutely, there will be no compromise on a couple of absolute situations. And with some of the other situations, just let them go more. Also, with a child like this, you can very easily get into the habit of saying no all the time. Try and make a deliberate effort to sometimes say yes. To say yes to a child immediately is not giving in. That's being emotionally generous. If you, after being worn down by a power struggle, say yes, that's giving in. So therefore, yes and no more quickly. Pick your spots and be really sure about the situations and tend to let a little more go. And then when that doesn't work, say to yourself at the back of your mind that he's going to be something really special when he grows up and the stubbornness is turned in a positive direction.
what are some mistakes, Dr. Turecki, that most parents make? Some easily made mistakes that are going to really give you problems later if you don't get a handle of discipline.
Well, okay. One of them is overindulgence. We've talked a lot about that, which is essentially having no system of rules and having a democracy rather than an adult leadership. That's one. Another one is just kind of like spoiling a child too much, which means giving in to them all the time after long arguments. Another one going the other way is being too harsh, being so much on top of the child with everything that you really are squashing your child rather than leading them. Those are some of the common ones. Inconsistency is another one. You don't have to be consistent all the time. The mom and the dad don't have to do everything the same way. But by and large, you don't want to be doing something that I saw a little earlier today when you say, don't do that on the one hand, but on the other hand, you're smiling when you say it. That's a double message. And the child will not know what it is that you mean.
Okay. All right. Question.
I have two daughters. One that was a very good girl, and I had another one which, like him, she didn't want to listen. Now she's 15 and she's gone away.
She's what?
She's gone away. She does whatever she wants. It's very hard right now.
Yeah.
What is to say that that's not going to happen with these children?
Well, that's a very good question. I think that if you have a child who is stubborn and persistent and doesn't listen well, and you have a combination of that and the child is not handled well, you may well be on the way to trouble. But I think it's never is too late with a child who's young to begin to change and to begin to define those clear, absolute things that you're going to take a stand on and to let other things go. Also, in my experience, when you have a child who at the age of 15 is really in serious trouble, other things have gone on as well. It isn't just the child's personality or temperament. There've usually been some degree of family problems. There've usually been other things within the family. Maybe not in yours.
Okay. Through discipline for kids, trying to finally find peace on the family front. When we come back, some questions about diet and how diet could be helping your kid go bonkers. We'll be back right after this. That you are what you eat. But believe it or not, some of the foods that you feed your family may actually change your typical Dennis the Menace into a real demon, all because of allergic reactions. Vivian Krasner says that simple things like carrots and rice, I mean, things you see on the family table all the time, those were the things that made her children, Daniel and Carly, simply impossible to deal with. And she didn't find out why until her family life was almost ruined. What was going on in your life there?
Major hyperactivity, whining, behavioral problems, aggression, hurting other children. Finally, it got to a point where I would say to my husband, if you don't come home now, we're going to have a dead child. I'm losing it. I can't deal.
You had just lost it.
I had it. It was impossible. Daniel, I would say, honey, calm down, honey, calm down, honey, calm down. He couldn't calm down, but I didn't know this. So he'd get sent to his room, he'd get punished. And for 3 years, he got punished.
Oh, man, Daniel, that must have been a bummer.
I didn't feel well either.
You didn't feel well about it either. What types of things would you do?
I'd hurt Carly. I wouldn't listen to my mom. I'd go outside without telling her. I'd go outside, play with other kids, and sometimes hurt them.
And so when you got sent to your room all the time, boy, that must have been, you guys were getting disciplined a lot, huh, Carly? What did that do to your kid life?
Made it terrible.
Huh?
Made it terrible.
It made it terrible. And what about you, Daniel? What were you trying to say?
Well, when I was in first grade, my mom heard about Dr. Rapp, and then after she figured out that all that stuff that I was doing was really allergies, she apologized to me for all that she punished me for because she didn't know that I was all allergy and I couldn't help it.
You couldn't help it. Well, you're going to help a lot of other moms wake up and a lot of other kids maybe get to say, hey, Mom, I'm allergic to something. Let's take a look just so you get a real clear idea of what poor Vivian had to deal with. Take a look at this video. This is Carly having a reaction to simple carrots.
Don't be disgusted. Todd, be careful.
Hey, Carly? Patrick, ask your question. He didn't say it. Can Patrick ask your question? No! Why? Why? Okay, can I hear the question?
No!
Carly, I can't believe that's you. Whoa! Did you actually feel different after you ate rice and carrots?
Kind of.
Kind of. How did Vivian? What made you think to go to the doctor and check out allergies?
Every other doctor that I had taken Daniel to had said to me, it was my parenting or he needed a psychiatrist. I don't think children at age 5 need psychiatrists.
Yeah.
I also don't think that anybody else knows a child better than their own mother.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody was listening. So I said, okay, now I've got to find another avenue so I can help my child. And I started doing a little research, and a good friend of mine showed me Dr. Rapp's book one day and said, "Did you ever read this?" I said, "No, I didn't. May I borrow it?" She said, "No, I'm reading it." I bought the book, and a week later, I happened to meet Dr. Rapp at a health seminar, and I almost attacked her. I need to talk to you. And I did, and thank God we were able to help the children,
That's
and
right.
she's made a tremendous difference in their lives.
Well,
with her
we've
treatment.
heard about this Dr. Rapp, for goodness sakes. Let's bring her in here. This lady, my next guest, is responsible for curing both the Krasner children and hundreds of other kids just like them. She is a pediatric allergist and clinical associate professor at pediatrics at the State University at Buffalo. She's also the author of a book called The Impossible Child. Dr. Doris Rapp, welcome. Boy, how many family lives have you saved? Is this a common problem that kids have behavioral reactions to allergies?
I think it's far more common than most people realize. Many parents are perplexed because they think they're a poor parent. Many of the children think they're bad kids. And in essence, many of these families have many allergic relatives who have hay fever and asthma. The children frequently have that. Mm-hmm. And they'll have a child that's perfectly fine. And all of a sudden, for no reason at all that you can see, this child is a white tornado. Or sometimes they aren't real hyper. Sometimes they're too tired. Sometimes they cry. They get irritable. They have chronic headaches every day or chronic belly aches, or their legs ache like a toothache. Many times they have nose problems, and then they have one ear infection after another. And lots of the children that I see have difficulty that goes all the way back to when they were an infant. Some of them were hyperactive in the uterus. They kicked mommy. If your baby kicks too much in the uterus, always say, "What did I eat or smell?" Mm-hmm. And then as infants, they cried and they screamed and they had ear infections and they banged their heads. Many of them had surgery for their recurrent fluid behind the eardrums. Then they had the belly aches and the asthma and the hay fever. But it's when they have the behavior problems that they start having difficulty at school, difficulty at home. They don't have friends. Everybody's perplexed. They feel that they're doing something wrong. And in essence, the problem is that they weren't placed on a simple diet. Carly was about 60% better in a diet in 1 week, and he was about 70% better in just 1 week. Right. One of the problems is that people think it's the so-called junk foods that cause trouble, and it could be any food. It could be rice or carrots or milk or the good foods. So watch your child, and when you notice there's a sudden change, say, what did they eat? Right. Touch or smell that could have caused it, and you'll have answers right away.
That's right. Well, your answers were good for you. Life's better.
Life is wonderful.
Okay. Your life can be wonderful, too, at home. When we come back, we're going to tell other ways to tell if your problem child may be allergic to favorite foods or surroundings, and other discipline tips as soon as we come back. disciplining our children and trying to learn new tips and how to get those little wild things to behave. Okay, Joey. We were also bringing in the whole talk about the relationship that food and the environment might play on the disposition of a difficult child. I'd like you to meet Pat and her son here. You had the same kind of thing, an allergy situation. What was happening? What were these signs that this seemingly behaved young man was sending out? What's your name, son?
Patrick.
Okay, Patrick.
Patrick was active from the time he was a newborn infant, and he was also a very sick child, so we always knew that he had allergies. But the problem with him began in kindergarten when he was very disruptive in the classroom. He never sat still. His teacher would be reading a story or doing a lesson, and he'd be running around the room or getting out of his seat constantly, tapping on his desk, that kind of thing. And he would get up in the middle of the night, roller skate through the living room. He played...
I hear 3 o'clock in the morning. There was Patrick.
Yep. We had wooden floor. He played Mary Poppins. He would slide down the banister with an umbrella 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. He wasn't a nasty, hostile child, but he was just so active. He'd get into my Tupperware and just take scoops and go wee and throw flour and sugar all over the kitchen.
Oh my goodness.
He took a beanbag chair apart one time, and those thousands of tiny little styrofoam things were everywhere. The ceiling, the walls.
Bad child.
You were a bad child. I bet that didn't make your child life much fun either. Did you get in trouble a lot?
Oh.
Yeah.
We felt like, I cried all the time because I felt like I was always yelling at him, and I would go to bed at night and just cry.
Oh gosh, so how did it come that you finally realized this was an allergy?
I always knew it was allergies, but I couldn't get anyone to believe me. And we took him to a child neurologist, and they put him on Ritalin right away and diagnosed him as attention deficit disorder. The Ritalin totally changed his personality, made him extremely depressed. We feel like he lost about 1.5 years of his childhood, literally, because he went from this hyperactive, bubbly child to a child who was withdrawn, depressed, and couldn't make eye contact or even talk to anyone. And we took him off the Ritalin, found Dr. Rapp, took him to her, and he gets nothing. He's not under any kind of medical treatment now at all. He is he's fine.
Dr. Rapp, you were shaking your head, nodding your head that a lot when you were mentioning that a lot of people didn't believe her.
Many of the parents' observations are absolutely valid. They'll say, every time my child eats this is what happens. But much of the medical literature still says that foods and sugar, for example, don't cause difficulty, and this is sort of ridiculous at this stage. Many of those studies have been paid for by the food industry, and so you have to take it with a little bit of salt.
Okay, take it with a little bit of salt. Okay, we'll be right back in a minute. I'll get right to your question.
I'm thinking of the teacher who may have 30 to 35 rambunctious children in the classroom. So I'm curious as to the kinds of academic grades as well as conduct grades that these children receive.
How are their grades, Moms?
Daniel is it's terrible coming from the mother. He's an extremely bright child, is in all the enrichment programs that are available in his school. Carly also is in the same... I'm not being coerced or coaxed by her, but they are both very bright. They both do very well in school, and they are both in a dual language program.
Okay. What about Patrick?
Patrick was also a very bright child. He could read before he went into kindergarten, which we thought caused a lot of his problem because he was reading books that his teacher was now reading, and I already read that. And so yeah, he's a real bright child too.
And your kids, are they doing well in school? Do they have the same problems in school? Who said no? Roger, you're not doing well in school?
Nope.
Do you get in trouble at school like you do at home?
Lots of times.
Lots of times. Okay, so I see you see it's a little bit of everything. Question, come here.
For the kids, how do your friends in school react to the way to your behavior? Or other kids,
Roger.
your friends and other kids in school?
How do the kids react to your behavior?
Most of my friends act the same way I do.
Well, there you go. Are you good in school?
Yes.
You got to tell me something. What do you have to tell me?
My friend always beat me up.
I wonder why, Joey.
Can I say something there? When they asked about Joanna, when Joanna's in school, shh.
Wait, Joey.
When Joanna's in school, she acts nothing like she acts for me. Never. The teachers tell me she is a perfect angel, so helpful, so courteous, so wonderful.
But when it says
that's not my daughter.
Yes, Dr. Turecki.
I want to say something about that because that can lead a parent to feel very guilty and to feel that there's something wrong with them, and that is not the issue. The issue is that certain patterns of behavior are set up between the parent and the child, and they just become ingrained as the patterns of behavior. When the child is away from the situation, the pattern is no longer there, and therefore they behave in a very different way. So the fact that a child is having it most difficulty with you does not automatically mean that you're a rotten parent. That's very important.
Okay, question.
Being the only child of a single-parented mother up until the age of 10 years old, and being very curious and inventive and imaginative, what my mother found out my problem was when I was up, I think about 13 years old, is that a lot of fried foods and a lot of sweets were bad for me because I would get in a lot of trouble and stuff. So what she wound up doing was feeding me a lot of baked and boiled foods and less sugar, and she paid a lot of attention and also indulged in my activities to make sure that whatever I was involved with, she also had, you know, some kind of insight. And up to now, at 31 years old, I have to give my mother a great compliment for raising me, because right now I work and I'm able to hold my own, you know. So mothers, don't give up. Don't give up.
Don't give up. We'll be right back in a minute. That's good. That's good. Is there such thing as a perfect child?
My judgment. But there is a child that can be raised to respect who she is, to accept herself as a person, and to go with her strengths. And if we can do that for our children, we're raising great children. And they don't have to be perfect if we can do that.
God, moms, dads, good luck. I'd also like to say to our audience, thanks for listening to one of probably the most noisy show that we've done. But we wanted our little tots to have a good time. We'd also like to give a very special thanks to Warner Brothers for letting us film in their store today on 57th here in New York. And of course for helping us decorate our set today. So good luck, parents. Go out there. I hope you learned some tips today, and check in on those allergies, right? And we'll see you next time on The Line. Thank you so much.